The phone call lasted less than 6 minutes, but according to whispers now spreading through palace corridors, it detonated what little trust remained between Prince William and Prince Harry. Because this was not just another awkward royal disagreement buried behind polished smiles and carefully staged balcony appearances. No, this time the argument allegedly centered around Princess Charlotte herself, and insiders are now claiming the fallout became so explosive that William privately warned Harry to stay away from Balmoral altogether before the royal summer gathering could spiral into something the monarchy could no longer quietly contain. And the truly unsettling part? People inside royal circles are not describing William as angry. They are describing him as cold, controlled, finished, which in royal language is far more dangerous. The entire situation reportedly began after a deeply emotional conversation involving Princess Charlotte's recent birthday photograph. A picture that looked innocent to the public. Soft smile, windswept hair. The future princess standing confidently in the countryside while Catherine's carefully managed image strategy once again reminded the world exactly who the stable royal family is now. But according to palace whispers, the image created chaos thousands of miles away in Montecito, because Harry allegedly became emotional after seeing how naturally Charlotte, George, and Louis were growing into royal life, while Archie and Lilibet remain almost completely detached from that world. And that alone reportedly triggered tensions inside Harry's own household, because according to explosive chatter now circulating among royal commentators, Harry allegedly made another quiet push for his children to spend more time in Britain this summer. Not publicly, not through interviews, through private discussions. Discussions that reportedly included Balmoral, the one place still emotionally tied to his childhood memories of Diana, late-night family dinners, muddy countryside walks, and the version of the monarchy he still seems unable to let go of. But then came the alleged phone call involving Charlotte, and this is where everything became dramatically worse. According to whispers now spreading through royal media circles, Charlotte allegedly became upset after overhearing conversations about family tensions surrounding the Sussexes and Balmoral invitations. Some versions even claim Charlotte privately asked why Harry always causes sadness whenever family gatherings are mentioned. Imagine that for a moment. The daughter of the future king quietly associating her uncle with stress instead of warmth. Whether fully accurate or not, insiders claim that moment deeply affected William. Because for years, William reportedly tolerated chaos when it affected him personally. But once it allegedly touched his children emotionally, the equation changed completely. And suddenly, the tone inside Kensington Palace reportedly shifted from cautious diplomacy to emotional protection mode. Sources now claim William became furious after hearing details of Harry's latest discussions surrounding Balmoral access and possible family reconciliation attempts. Not because Harry wanted peace, but because William allegedly believes every private interaction eventually becomes public through leaks, documentaries, books, or sources close to the Sussexes. And according to royal insiders, William has now reached a psychological breaking point where he no longer believes private trust with Harry is even possible. What makes this even more painful is the symbolism quietly building around Charlotte herself. Royal commentators have increasingly noticed how often Charlotte now appears beside William during public moments. The body language, the protective gestures, the confidence William seems to place in her presence. Some insiders even claim Charlotte has become emotionally central to William during Catherine's difficult health chapter because her calmness reportedly reminds him of both Diana and the late Queen at once. That emotional connection matters enormously here. Because if William genuinely believes Charlotte has become distressed by the Sussex drama, then insiders said there is virtually no scenario where he risks exposing her to more emotional instability this summer. And meanwhile, Harry reportedly did not expect this level of resistance. According to whispers from California circles, Harry allegedly believed Charles still wanted some version of family healing behind closed doors. Small steps, quiet visits, gradual rebuilding. But what he reportedly underestimated was how much influence William now holds inside the monarchy's emotional structure. Charles may still be king, but William is increasingly acting like the protector of the institution's future emotional survival. And people inside palace circles are noticing it. They are noticing how William's tone has changed, how his patience appears thinner, how much more guarded the Wills household has become whenever Harry's name surfaces privately. Some even claim aides now treat potential Sussex interactions almost like security operations rather than family reunions. That is how damaged things allegedly are behind the scenes. And perhaps the saddest detail of all is this, because insiders claim Harry genuinely believed Charlotte herself still adored him the way she did when she was younger. The funny uncle, the playful spare prince who once crouched beside her at public events making faces and whispering jokes during royal ceremonies. But time changes royal families. Children grow up, memories shift, and according to people close to palace life, Harry is now confronting something emotionally devastating. And that realization reportedly hit Harry harder than anyone around him expected, because for years he seemed convinced that time alone would eventually soften the damage, that eventually George, Charlotte, and Louis would become curious enough to reconnect naturally, that childhood memories would somehow overpower years of interviews, accusations, documentaries, memoir chapters, leaked stories, and public attacks against the institutions surrounding them. But insiders now claim the opposite may actually be happening behind palace walls. The Wills children are growing older inside an environment where loyalty, privacy, and emotional caution are constantly emphasized. And according to whispers from royal staffers, William has become extraordinarily protective about what emotional atmosphere surrounds them. That is why the alleged warning to Harry reportedly carried such shocking emotional weight, because it was not framed as palace politics, it was framed as fatherhood. William allegedly did not speak like the future king during these discussions. He spoke like a parent trying to shield his daughter from emotional confusion and public chaos. And according to people familiar with royal dynamics, that distinction matters enormously because William has historically separated institutional duty from private family pain. But now the two have reportedly collided in a way that changed everything. And somewhere inside Montecito, Harry allegedly realized that the divide is no longer simply between himself and the institution. The divide now includes the next generation. That is the part nobody expected, because for years the royal conflict revolved around adults. Charles versus Harry, William versus Harry, Meghan versus the palace machine. But once Charlotte's name allegedly became attached to private emotional concerns surrounding Balmoral, insiders claim palace conversations became dramatically more serious. Suddenly, this was no longer viewed as temporary family turbulence. It became a question of what emotional legacy the younger royals are inheriting. And behind the scenes, people are now obsessing over one detail that initially seemed tiny but reportedly carried devastating symbolism. Harry was allegedly not included in early private discussions surrounding summer planning at Balmoral this year. Normally, these arrangements happen quietly, months in advance. Timing, security, guest flow, family schedules. But according to whispers circulating among royal correspondents, there was unusual hesitation this time whenever Harry's possible presence came up. Not because Charles necessarily rejected him immediately, but because William reportedly made his discomfort impossible to ignore. But some insiders even claim William questioned whether another tense Sussex appearance at Balmoral could emotionally destabilize the carefully rebuilt atmosphere surrounding Catherine and the children after an already exhausting year. And when you look at it from that perspective, the alleged warning suddenly becomes even colder because William was not merely rejecting Harry. He was prioritizing emotional peace over reconciliation, especially when Balmoral carries such emotional significance for Harry himself. This is the same estate where Diana's death shattered the family forever. The same hills, the same quiet Scottish mornings, the same rooms carrying ghosts of childhood memories before royal life became warfare. Harry reportedly always viewed Balmoral as emotionally sacred territory untouched by modern palace politics. But according to insiders, William no longer sees it that way at all. To William, Balmoral is now where his own children feel safest away from cameras, social media hysteria, royal gossip cycles, and endless Sussex controversies, which means the estate itself has symbolically changed hands emotionally. It no longer represents Harry's memories. It represents Charlotte, George, and Louis's future. What makes this story even more emotionally explosive is the timing surrounding King Charles himself, because royal observers have quietly noticed something unusual in recent months. Charles reportedly continues sending small emotional signals toward Harry privately, while simultaneously allowing the institutional distance to grow publicly. The removed wedding photograph from Highgrove reportedly shook palace watchers precisely because it looked less like anger and more like emotional surrender. A father slowly reorganizing his emotional life around absence rather than hope. And according to whispers now circulating among aristocratic insiders, William allegedly interpreted Harry's latest Balmoral interest not as genuine healing, but as another emotionally risky cycle preparing to repeat itself. Another visit, another temporary thaw, another private conversation eventually leaking into headlines. Another round of speculation destabilizing the family environment around Catherine and the children. And people close to palace operations claim the wording shocked even senior aides because it was allegedly far more direct than previous attempts at diplomacy. One insider described the message as protective but final. Another reportedly claimed William no longer believes Harry understands the emotional damage left behind after years of public attacks on the family. Because beneath the headlines and gossip, there is now growing recognition that the brothers may be emotionally past the point of easy repair. Not because they stopped loving each other entirely, but because too much damage has accumulated around them. Years of suspicion, resentment, competing narratives, public humiliation, broken trust, emotional exhaustion. Eventually, even blood relationships begin collapsing under that weight, because according to royal insiders, Charlotte has quietly become one of the monarchy's emotional anchors despite her age. Staff reportedly adore her maturity. William reportedly trusts her instincts deeply. Catherine reportedly sees enormous emotional intelligence in her daughter. And royal watchers increasingly notice how naturally Charlotte moves within public royal life compared to the chaos surrounding the Sussex narrative overseas. On one side, a tightly controlled future monarchy centered around William, Catherine, George, Charlotte, and Louis. Stability, continuity, discipline, careful emotional management. On the other side, Harry and Meghan trapped inside endless reinvention cycles where every few months another interview, another rumor, another rebrand, another public grievance emerges before the previous controversy even fades. And according to palace whispers, William now fears exposing his children emotionally to that instability more than he fears public criticism for appearing cold toward Harry, which brings this entire story to its most devastating emotional conclusion, because people close to royal life are now quietly asking a question that would have sounded unthinkable just a few years ago. What if William has already emotionally accepted that Harry may never fully return to the family in the way he once imagined? Because insiders say there is a noticeable difference between temporary anger and emotional acceptance. Temporary anger still hopes for repair. Emotional acceptance begins redesigning life without the other person permanently inside it. And according to whispers now spreading through palace circles, William's recent behavior increasingly resembles acceptance.